time for our special guest, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just do a proper introduction where I can find my bearings. Andrew Manyika is a poet, slam champion, a 2020 NAMA-nominated comedian, and renowned MC based in Zimbabwe. He likes using this unique combination of poetry and comedy to both query and poke fun at the world we live in. Andrew's CV of achievements is a long one. Just to give you a taste, he has twice represented Zimbabwe as a top 10 finalist in the Pan-African Ultimate Storyteller Contest. He has performed on stages across the world, including at several top-tier festivals like Poetry Africa, Time of the Writer, and Tanta International Poetry Festival, where Zimbabwe was represented for the first time, so he was a star attraction. In 2016, he took his one-man show, Love and Laughter, on a tour of America, becoming the first Zimbabwean to perform at festivals such as Vancouver's The Golden Pony and the Backdoor Comedy Club in Texas. Then in 2019, he returned to the stage with a new show called Just Married and published his debut poetry collection, Man of Letters. Andrew's current plans are to keep entertaining his audiences and readers. He has recently returned to the stage with a new one-man show dubbed The Colonizer, very good words, and he's now preparing to get the show on the road with a nationwide tour. Can we please give a big fire and dust welcome to Andrew Manyika?
Andrew.
Thank you so much, everybody. I am so pleased, so chuffed to be here. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I was a fire and dust a couple of months ago. It was my first time, and I was really blown away by just the vibe and how the quality of the poetry and how everybody just creates an environment where we can just get in touch with each other and also just experience poetry communally, which we haven't been able to do for a while. So thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. So I was thinking about what kind of set I'm going to prepare for you, and I decided to launch with my favorite love poem of the ones that I've written. And what we're going to do is go from there, and then I'm going to try and split up the show into different focuses. So the first section is going to focus on love so that we quickly get that out of the way, and then we see what happens next. So this poem is called Cedars of Lebanon. So the idea behind the poem is that King Solomon, when instructed to build a temple in Jerusalem, was instructed to use cedar wood from Lebanon. Now, the idea is that the expression, I'm carrying a torch for you, which means that you're harboring affection for somebody. And I was thinking, well, if you're going to carry affection for somebody, then what kind of wood would you use for that torch that you're carrying for them? And that's the thinking behind this poem. And it goes, they're looking for us to lead them into love. For the longest time, I carried the biggest torch for you. I ripped it out of the bleeding bark of a cedar tree of Lebanon, but you don't hear me though. In a treasure trove of cedar groves, there are evergreens that forever grow. Seasons change and it never shows, because these trees, they never stray, save upwards, with the bark that is etched from the marks of the stretch of striving to drink from the cloud while feet stay parched in the earth upwards, with needle-like leaves that are striving to teach buildings what it means to scrape the skies upwards, forward. I hurtled forward towards this forest, having too often been thrown into the throes of reckless abandon, only to find my soul trampled under souls then recklessly abandoned. Having wearied of being wary of false affection and feigned fealties, of distressing damsels who disdain detection, whilst in reality they came with a charm that is disarming, taught me that love is a battle, but I resigned my commission from this army. I was looking for better wars for my metaphor, so I put down my pen and my pad and I tried to shut forever's door, but I was hurled through. Hurt and riddled with scars, I decided to seek shelter in this cedar shade until it only hurt a little. And when the memory of present suffering had been reduced to a mere murmur in the chambers of my heart, I pronounced that I would love again. And though I stammered a little, I grabbed both hammer and chisel and set to carving. I took the wood from that tree, fashioned the good that could be. I overlaid it with gold and placed it in my own two palms to hold, so that when I met you, I would have more to present to you than the mere time on my hand. So when I say I'm carrying a torch for you, understand. I dug it out of the bleeding bark of a cedar tree of Lebanon. Understand that with more time spent in the palm of my hands, it took on features like the fibers of my being, and I hold it out to you in the hopes that when I meet you, I'll recognize you to be a woman taken from the fabric of a dream, and you are From the way that you walk like there is a dance bound in your frame, to how even music lacks luster compared to the sound of your name. Your laugh, which is a musician's invention, or your silence, which is a miner's reward. Would that you would take some of that fire in your belly, use that passion to light it, and see that I love you from the deep ends of my heart, where the flavors of my affection are concentrated. Like a deep thought, you leave me both shaken and stirred. See that I would bind myself to you at an altar and proceed to suckle the honey from the moon. Because of time, without you, I have surpassed my quota. So I'm ready to give you everything. That's every dot and every iota. I would even honor the marks on your celestial body, because I understand these aren't scars. These are hieroglyphs. Hewn into you, I read them. And as I tune into your rhythm, I become consumed by you, my prism. You add color to the light years of my life. And so I'm carrying a torch. I ripped it, I carved it, I broke it out of the burning body of a cedar tree of Lebanon to light the path to the great trees of Mam, a place where God comes down, because they're looking for us to lead them into light. Thank you. That's poem number 1, Cedars of Lebanon. And now I'm going to go to a poem called Make Up Your Mind. Now, the idea behind this poem is that the setting is a man and a woman are about to go out for the evening. Now, because this is a fictional tale, science fiction, it's not based in reality in any way. In this particular instance, the woman is ready first. We all know that women are always ready. Sorry, the man is ready first. We all know that women generally tend to be ready first most times. Well, and so this is the conversation that they proceed to have. She said, "How come you never take off your ties?" I said, "Because you never take off your lies. Wake up, you're fine. You only need to make up your mind." She said, "I get that you're the poet, but allow me to break down my makeup philosophy. You see, I worry because being colorless means being plain old black and white. And those two extremes are simply too extreme for me. So why don't you, Mr. Poet, tell me something philosophical about looks?" I told her, "Look, if it's philosophy you want, you should really be about books. But okay, I'll buy it. To me, it seems pretty apparent that for you, colorless really means transparent. That more than a disdain for being plain behind color, you seem to find a cloak for your pain." She says nothing to object, but allows me to stand and witness her process. So she stands on the foundation of the sculpture that she's making to base herself on. A little embarrassed that I can see all this, she brushes her cheeks with blushes. She's sweet, but even in this, she lacks honesty, because her blush is paradoxically some permanent shade of 12-hour modesty. Unburdening herself of the epiphany she keeps in the bags under her eyes, they shadow, like they're hiding the light of her soul behind thunderous skies. And then she grabs that pencil and lines them up to that ideal image in her mind she struck, and the lengthened lashes of her mascara help her to ignore the mass scarring of her soul, so that off the top of her head, she's retelling her tale, but it's just starring the highlights. Her red lips stick together as though joined in agreement that they'll never spill the secret of who she really is. She forgot the concealer, but at this point doesn't really see the need. So, nearly ready to leave, but now like she's looking for lost change, she's rummaging through her brassiere, searching for leverage against the world, and settles on her cleavage, finding the idea most strange that someone might cleave to her without. So that even while her push-up bra buoys her memory glands, my memory hands me images of a time when she was as simple to read as black ink on white. She was a picture whose texture had a uniform feel, but she's pushed up out of my reach on a platform heel. She's done. She's made up a fairy tale. And this construct of her imagination says, "Tell me I'm beautiful." To which I respond, "If the eyes are the window to the soul, then I am a disappointed peeping Tom, because I've been keeping warm off the heat yours generates like a supernova's best, and a return to tell you that you, ma'am, with your slightly colored contact lenses, have a soul which is overdressed. But you're beautiful, and have been so from the beginning. Not the first time a man told you how deep his desire was to hold you, but the very beginning. Not when your body first spurted from prepubescence to adolescence and time chose you to feed new essence, but the very beginning when you, and I know that it's odd, my dear, but it goes back to when you were truer than Athena springing from Zeus's head. You were God's idea. A prime example of his penmanship. A poem pitted to parade his workmanship. And as you go through the motions from fetal position to fatal position, your entire biography has been written in the flawless tip of his endless calligraphy. That's your spirit, the mind you tame, and the body you paint. So wake up, you're fine. You only need to make up the roof. So you're saying I should take it off? No, no, no. By all means, keep the colors. I like them. I'm saying that the human vessel is inherently imperfect, so that maybe she's born with it, and maybe you need to take care. Love the skin you're in, you're both worth it. As long as the option is open and the potion is potent, sip slow. But when the years make their mark, don't let it break your heart. Just say amen to the omen. But if you insist on battling these 7 signs of aging, please remember the timeline in your face is only making your story more worth the pain. The crow's feet and laughter lines are in the nature of a human being. And they only serve as evidence that you have lived, that you have breathed, that you have been. Tell me I'm beautiful, she asks. I wish she understood that she's amazing with or without the masks. That there's nothing I can say or do to add to or take from it. So what is your problem with it, she finally spurts. It's not the makeup, I mind. It's just alarming to find that many who wear it are blind to the fact that that which has the power to attract lies not in the face, but in the makeup of the mind. You see, beauty is an altar before which we all go, but as you approach his throne, bring small sacrifice. Change your face, but don't alter your ego. And when you wake up, you'll find the only thing you needed to make up was your mind. Thank you. Okay, so this is still in the love section of tonight's show. I'm recently married. You can tell when somebody's recently married because they suddenly become very left-handed. You know, even if you've got an itch in your right ear, somehow you still find a way to introduce this particular ring into the issue. But yeah, so this is still the love section of the poem. So I'm going to look at some breakup poems now, which are short because, you know, who wants to dwell on that? And these 2 poems I wrote, this first one is called Space Time, which comes from the popular expression when people are breaking up. I need a little space. I was like, oh, I didn't realize you're an astronaut now. NASA called? What's happening? So it's called Space Time. And it says, she said, I need a little space. I need a little time. I need a little something to clear out my mind. I didn't know she was a physicist, or the value that she placed on her experience, or that I would be one of the many things she'd leave behind, or searching for pieces of herself in the fabric of space and time. And this next one is called refuse, as in trash, as in you treated me like garbage, then decided it was beneath you to be seen sifting through the trash. And that's it. It's very short, like I told you. All right, so back to things that we love and times when those things loved us back. I was quite inspired by the poem that came on just before mine that spoke about marmalade and marmite. So I'm gonna go into one of my food poems, my only food poem, and it's entitled "Ode to Bacon," which, as the title suggests, is an ode to bacon. And here we go. Bacon, we never knew you. Yours was the sweet savor of a Saturday morning. Scintillating scent transcending space and perhaps time. Titillating taste teasing tongue and perhaps mind. Placed on plates while I cleared the palate. Amongst taste brides you had pride of place. My mouth was your palace. Bacon, you who moved from forbidden fruit to breakfast staple. Oh, the hopeless emptiness when you are absent from the breakfast table. Devoured in a flurry of gobbledygook, we chowed and munched and gobbled. Now look, all that remains is a plate marked with grease stains and the unspeakable question lingering in our brains. Does it really come to my picture end? Oh, my dear, dear friend Bacon, we never knew you. And perhaps that was for the best. Thank you. Okay. So this next section of the performance is about relationships. Not of the romantic variety, but sometimes the relationships that we lose, the relationships that we make. I lost someone very important to me a couple of years ago. That was my uncle. He pretty much raised all of his siblings, and effectively was like my uncle slash granddad. And then when I lived in South Africa, I also had an incident that happened with my landlord that made me really have a moment of self-reflection. That is covered in my book, which I'm going to read from when I get to that particular point. So, in fact, let me start with that. It's called Bad Blood. And here it goes. Bad Blood, or for my friend who became my landlord. There are so many phases to falling apart. I went mouth first. Once nimble tongue, now clumsy enough to trip landmines, I land mine on all the wrong buttons, while serrated edge teeth open wounds, opening an overdraft on the goodwill of our friendship. Broken promises issue from both sides of the mouth of a breaking man. I didn't think, not in 3 decades of sleeping, not even under full moons when the nightmares ran all night beside the overnight stallions. No, not in all of that wild dreaming did I imagine that I could wear the title that you gave. I am falling apart, and close as we are, you are caught in the black. I'm sorry. Still fixing my lips to frame the phrase before the words can escape, the roof of my mouth caves. Bruised or broken, they still seep out from the debris in a tidal wave of saliva and sorrow. When we were younger, I didn't believe in the silence of the S in debris, and debut was debut. But though that was the kind of silliness we used to share a chuckle over, I have not been able to fish laughter out of your navel these last months. Nowadays, my words are shrapnel swimming in your ear canal, joining capillary, artery, veins, tributary, and you are taking everything to heart, using dimmer switches on the lights in your eyes, culling the teeth in your smile until out of the fullness of your heart you call me the man who doesn't keep his word. Capillaries, veins, arteries, waging war with words as artillery, and I am taking everything to heart, so that once nimble tongue cannot make it across the deepening pool of bad blood between us, to assuage you with better words than the broken ones you've already heard. Glad to say we are friends again. There was a brief period of time there when that looked unlikely, but we recovered, so I'm okay. And then here's the poem I wrote for my uncle. Also very short, but excuse me. My Uncle Ben was a broken record, stuck on a song called Good Advice. On Tuesday, the music stopped. The silence fades. Did Maggie just say that she once had a lover whose name was Bacon? I like it. Was it Kevin? Just by any chance? 6 degrees? Am I 1 degree closer to Kevin Bacon than I? All right. All right. So this next poem, excuse me. This next poem is called Defensive Wounds. Now, if you've been a fan of CSI like I was, then you might know this from there, like I do, that defensive wounds refers to a particular type of injury that one endures when trying to defend oneself from an attack. Now, the natural response is for one to lift one's arms up. Therefore, the wounds are normally found along the forearms. And these are defensive wounds. Unless you're a weirdo and you defend yourself with like your knees and stuff, in which case that was a very well fought self defense. But at any rate, I'm talking about regular defensive wounds, and here's the poem that goes with it. And then she smiled, That was towards the end when she was winning. In the beginning, a general cloud of discontent had draped itself like a blanket wet round her from the tears she'd wept and had sent her on a private searching for insight. And her plight was that she was puzzled by the lack of peace in places and people. And the ones that she had cut into for a peek at their insides left her feeling like a puzzle lacking its pieces in place. Oh, the departure of peace from her face. You see, in those days, she smelt of jasmine. And by the time that they left, they smelt of it too. That's every would-be and every has. They trampled her flower pots in the search of the samples of the gems in her mind. And having extracted everything, feeling like they'd reached the end of the line. And with each one's departure, a thought of increasing worthlessness took root and stemmed from her mind, so that even as they uprooted her virtue by degrees, she comforted herself with this mantra that, look, it'll only hurt you when you breathe. Don't breathe. If she is a tree, then beauty is falling from her indeed. And she was only looking for a little relief, but is not to be found amongst men, because every he that enters well, he leaves. And she becomes another notch on a bedpost frame, and he becomes another notch on her forewarned forearms, something she had taken to doing to blot out the pain. In those nights, she understood her dreams perfectly well. Her struggle was with the aching omens of her waking moments, the secret nights under the moon's lighting in which she engaged in ceaseless fights, moonlighting as a warrior queen. She fights at night because under that light, her wounds don't seem so severe. In fact, she wears them like honor badges, so revered. But deep down, she houses a pain deep enough to send boulders breaking, contending with the weight of the world with a shuddering shoulders shaking, sharpening her shoulder blades of chaos. She was a goddess of war. She was a goddess at war with herself, so that whoever strikes, she bruises. Whoever wins, she loses. Until she learns that peace is not a matter of pride, but of supplication, and healing is not a matter of time, but of its application. So she was searching for solace behind the stains on her glass windows, but even her God was pained because the last didn't know that while she was working on hacking at leaves and branches, as he advances, he's working on root causes, performing a sort of surgery of the spirit. And practitioners of poetry know that these procedures require as much patience as they do precisions. He descended on acoustic strings to bathe her again in the light of the truth he brings. He took the woman that she used to be and the girl that she could be again and applied healing to the timeline, suture strings, so that she could be crowned as the once and future queen. And it was then she smiled. And when she smiled, the wind glides past the wind chimes in her throat. Her laugh is a musical interlude, to the ears a vision. And as each peal rolls off her sharp silver tongue, it leaves in its wake a series of minute incisions, defensive. Thank you. Okay, I see my time departing from me, so I'm going to give you two short poems and one long poem, and that's going to be it from me. So this poem that I'm going to give you is called "Trajectory of a Tear." It was written at the very beginning of my career when I was tasked to produce a 1-minute poem as part of a competition that we were doing. It was a slam competition in Johannesburg. And so this one is about the idea that when we cry, perhaps it doesn't make its way from your tear that's down your eyes, but perhaps it makes its way from your heart up first and then out to the eyes. So this is Trajectory of a Tear. Flooding of emotions tugging at the heartstrings, bringing curiosity to the things within the bloodstreams. Open eyes slip beams of light through the tear duct. In the slip stream tonight with gear stuck, ascends a solitary drop towards a solitary top. as it is battling through the space-time continuum, straddling this fine line, continuing to ascend against gravity, gravitating towards the source of the siphon in the duct. It arrives but doesn't violently erupt. But on reaching the peak, it's tweaking the eyelids, keeping them open, peeking over blurry, sweeping views. As it peeks closer, the eyelid closes, and then it's downhill from here, skirting slippery facial sea slopes, leaving a trail, becoming dismembered, as if to say, don't fail to remember me, becoming smaller with the loss of each precious piece. It reaches the precipice where it is catching the light and forcing it to dance within. And then it trembles, and then it tumbles, and then it is hurtling toward the earth, glistening, looking forward to impact, but on regret, one listening, is only the sound of more. And since I am nearly on my way out, I'm going to read another poem for you from my book, Man of Letters. The book will be available on Amazon, all things being equal, by the time we get to April Fool's, which is a dubious date to launch anything, but here we are. So the book will be on Amazon in April. But in the meantime, so if you follow me on social media, I can keep you updated on what's happening there. In the meantime, let's treasure this recording. All right, so this poem is called Goodbye. And well, that word pretty much explains itself. Goodbye. Word built like granite, granting more of take than give, made with more of die than live, leaving bitter aftertaste after every time I depart in haste, leaving often never feeling the full force of my departure, fearful that underneath it I would come undone, that I would splinter and break, that I would shudder and shake, that I would stumble and fall, that I would crumble, and all that would remain in my wake is smithereens and splintered dreams and crimson streams and little things, a collage of brokenness. So I steal myself away, counting down the day. Goodbye. And now on to my last poem of the evening. This is a poem called Structural Integrity. It is the hardest poem for me to perform, and I'm sure by the time we get to the end, you'll understand why. But the idea of structural integrity is that it is the ability of a structure to be able to withstand pressure such that it doesn't allow a breach in the structure. It doesn't allow for the pressure to break through it and enable external forces to enter therein. Being a layman, I'm sure that's not the technical definition thereof, but it's the position from which I wrote the poem. Oh, this one has a musical accompaniment, which I had forgotten. So now that I've remembered, work with me, computer, machine. Okay. I hate how heavy hope is. In the falling sky is a darkening storm of gathering clouds. As they gather and form a disheartening shroud, it is taking light from my way, making night from the day. And as the storm brews nowadays, as if the norm news is coming from both far and near, beating the drums in my ears and letting me know that it is nearly fermented, and that my taste buds will soon know the bitter ale of the tale which is told of a titan tormented. Weighed down by the gravity of his situation, he bears land, mass, sea, and boulders, the weight of the entire world resting on the width of his shoulders. Drawing from the stream of my consciousness, I sip on my creative juices, contenting myself that even present suffering are things that the Creator uses. So I don't speak about the dark thoughts around which my mind keeps turning, or the secret passions raging between my spine and sternum, the warm fashion that my sleeves are waging, or the bleeding heart that these ribs are caging. You see, hearts were not meant to be accessories. So I'm opening my closet looking for armor better suited to the burden of expectations, minding the mind not to meander in the maze of the world's ways, bracing the back to be able to bear the brunt of as much as the world weighs, but your world weighs heavy, and I am weak. I am weakened by the emptiness of my refrigerator, reminding me that I have invested too much in the mere cooling of water and I am drowning in the deep end. I won't mince my words, but I relish Monday mornings because they mark the end of the weekend and the start of the work week, wherein I work weak, fingers to the bone, trying to make ends meet, caught in the vice-like grip of time's crunches. You realize there really are no such things as free lunches, not when friends say, hey. Have you noticed how Andrew's visits always seem to coincide with Sunday brunch? For these meals I pay. But currently, dignity is the only currency that life will accept as it pins me face down and plants on my head the premature beginnings of a gray crown. Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out what it all really means while the debt collector's number keeps my phone ringing, ringing tears out of my mother's pillowcase. Those were precious to me. Washing the weeping blister stains out of my father's gloves every day that he works for this family is a labor of love, looking at my little brother and thinking you deserve better from me. Things they've never heard me say, but thanks to this damn dreamer's disease, I'm more than prepared to step on the stage and put my soul on display, getting these weights off my chest, bench pressing, striving to become the benchmark, the funniest man on that stage, the winner of that slam. But sometimes, somehow, it all feels like a big sham, like the many alter egos I hide behind to conceal the caking lumps of mud that my real name has been dragged through. I suppose one does what one has. Standing before you now, I am a walking nervous system. And when I can't stand before the hardships, I kneel before his lordship. You see, I am no man of the cloth, but sometimes I feel like we're cut from the same cloth because even now my rational mind finds my spirit quite odd because even now I keep on trusting my God, a God who my grandfather introduced us to. And when I turned 21, Sekuru seemed to say, you're a man now, and paved the way to heaven. And to my shame, to this day, I am yet to set foot at his grave. But when I finally go, I'll have my final confrontation with gravity, though, and ask it, is this all that you're good for? I will tell death that you cannot steal my joy in life. You're going to have to wait. And there will be nothing gentle about my passing. When I die, I will leave scars on your horizons and scorch marks on your skies. I will not be a casualty of war. I will be quite difficult about my passing. And when I die, you will know that I was here. And that count. I stood here. Fire and Dust, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you taking time to listen to this poem. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the headliner for us. That was a powerful ending to a really great set, man. Lots of funny moments, heartfelt moments. It had everything, you know, man. Great flow, lovely imagery. Really impressed. So just a reminder, everyone, Andrew's book, Man of Letters. Hopefully, we'll be able to buy it come April. But you should follow his social media. I'm going to put a link on for that in the chat in just 1 second. If everyone wants to unmute and give him a proper round of applause, let's do that. I think he deserves it. Unmute yourselves. Let's go for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Woo. Yes.